The 1950s is also the decade that we associate the development and the expansion of middle class lifestyles and attitudes. At the heart of this is our consumer culture. But in this period, we're preoccupied with consumer goods. It's a result of prosperity, obviously. We have more money to spend, but also advertising and an ever increasing manufacturing capacity. We're able to make a greater variety of goods, and of course, that means people want them. Consumer credit grows by 800% from 1945 to 1957. This is really where credit cards come into their own. You notice, by the way, back in the day, they were just little pieces of paper. They weren't plastic yet. Revolving charge accounts, payment plans are all common features. You see the chart there showing the massive explosion of debt in this period. And really, as a percent of personal disposable income, it doesn't really go up dramatically after that period until the economic downturns in the post-Clinton years. Cars become flashier and loaded with accessories. We also begin to see car companies institute programs like planned obsolescence, so where cars are designed to last for a shorter period of time, so you're forced to go out and buy a new one. We also see cars now being offered at different price points. So a particular car manufacturer will have one version of a car that's sold with lots of bells and whistles and extra features sold at a higher price, and then a mid-level and then a lower level, depending on how much you're able to spend on the car. But cars also become very central to our culture and central to our identity. What kind of car you drive becomes a major part of kind of who you are in society. We see the further expansion and improvement of appliances, which of course is a big deal because it means we spend a lot less time doing household chores that used to be very consuming. Dishwashers, garbage disposals, of course televisions, hi-fi sets, which is like a record player or a radio, and the invention of stereo, so sound can be separated into two different channels. National advertising, which gets to us through TV, leads to crazes. And there's all kinds of things that will come along and for a brief period of time will be something everybody seems to be doing. The hula hoop is probably the first of these great crazes. Mickey Mouse merchandise. The Mickey Mouse watch is a big fad for a while. The poodle skirt you see there. The Arthur Murray, the whole dance party thing, all the fad dances. There's always some crazy dance that everybody is trying to learn to do. Davy Crockett. I remember my dad talking to me about having all the kids had to have a coonskin cap after Davy Crockett came out. But these were all fads, all kind of trends that swept through the community. We still see these today, but they're much less severe and much less common, really. By the way, I should point out, since many of my students are about the age for this to be part of their childhood, the one fad, or one very popular thing, was cowboys, and kids were constantly playing cowboys and Indians. But as soon as the space race began, as soon as Sputnik goes up, the cowboy falls out of favor, and we get into, and everybody becomes obsessed with the spaceman. And so people say that one year every kid that came to your door at Halloween was dressed like a cowboy, and the next year every kid that came was dressed like an Indian. And this is what Toy Story, the movie, is ultimately about. The kid is originally obsessed with Woody, and then he loses interest in Woody to some extent, and starts to like the spaceman. But it's really tracking that fad right there as we move away from the cowboy to the spaceman. And of course, Disneyland opens up. Disneyland again becomes a major cultural phenomenon. This is the original one in California. Disney had already begun to corner the market on things like kids' movies and a lot of kids' products, and now they begin to corner the market on kind of the ultimate destination to take your kids for a vacation, and that becomes very much woven into the fabric of our society. A third of America lives in the suburbs by 1960. Rising income and cheaper construction methods will make it much easier for people to move out of the city and out into the suburbs. And the idea is it's not good to raise your kid in the city. It's dirty and it's loud and it's crowded and the crime is high. And so when you have kids, you need to get them out into the suburbs. Levittown is a neighborhood outside of New York where they pioneer mass-produced housing. It opens in 1957. The houses sold for under $10,000. That's about $90,000 in today's money. They were two-bedroom on a seventh of an acre, about 750 square feet, which today we consider to be a very, very small house. But back then it seemed to be plenty big for people. But the key to Levittown was the mass production of homes, the ability to build them cheaply and quickly, and they did.
The building of a house in one day is shown during the next 45 seconds by stop-motion photography. These are the 36 men who built this house. Another day, another 40 houses.
Like Leviton offered privacy, security. They were quiet. They were believed to be safe, and they were safe. Statistically, crime was lower. But suburbs also led to things like more space for junk. And we began to see families getting more appliances, more cars, boats, patio furniture, barbecues, etc., etc. We began to acquire more and more things as we had more space to put them. Of course, the suburbs will also be fed by what we call white flight. This will be whites seeking to get away from minorities as schools begin to get integrated, as neighborhoods in the city begin to get integrated. Many whites don't want their families around other races, minorities. And so they will move out into the suburbs, and many, in fact probably most suburbs, had codes to keep minorities out. It was actually illegal for minorities to move into many of these suburban neighborhoods. And this allowed them to build neighborhood schools, they called them, that were de facto segregated. It wasn't that black kids weren't allowed in the school, it was that black kids weren't allowed in the neighborhood. And since everybody in the school lived in the neighborhood, you could move to that neighborhood and not have to deal with the reality of integrating schools, which is on its way. One effect of the suburbs was it deepened the division between family and work for the man. In fact, in a big city like New York City, a successful man might still keep an apartment in the city, stay there during the week, and only come home to his family on the weekends. There was still very much the idea that women ideally would stay at home and take care of the kids in the house. And men often saw shame in women working. Dr. Spock, who became a national celebrity as an expert on raising kids, advised women to stay home from work and raise their kids for them to not enter the workforce. He gave this advice in 1946, and in large numbers they did. But ironically, as we move through the 50s and into the 60s, the expectations of consumption, the idea that we need all these things, we have to have all this money to buy these things, will drive women back into the workforce. And by 1960, about a third of married women are working simply to keep up with the Joneses, to buy the next thing that everybody seems to have, and make that extra money for the house.